Namaste to. Awesome. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अग्नेनया सुपताराहे अस्मान् विश्वानि देववयुधानि विद्वान् युयोध्यस्मज्जुहुराणमेनो भूयिष्ठान्तेन मुक्तिं विधेम ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ब्रह्मन् ब्राह्मणो ब्रह्मवर्चसे जायताम् आराष्ट्रे राजन्यः व्याधि महारथो जायताम् दोग्ध्रीधेनुः ओढानद्वान् आशुसप्तिः पुरन्धिर्योषः जिष्णोरतेष्ठाः सवेयो युवा अस्य अजमानस्य वीरो जायताम् निकामे निकामेनः पद्यन्यो न वर्षतो फलवत्यो न वोषधयः पच्यन्ताम् योगक्षेमो नः कल्पेताम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमतो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मामा ब्रह्म निराकरोतु अनिराकरणमस्तु निराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ये मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यवा उतोत इषवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यां तते नमः यात इषु शिवतमा शिवं बभूवते धनुः शिवा शरव्या यातवतया नो रुद्रमृडया याते रुद्रशिवा तनूरघोरा पावगाशिनी तयानस्तनवाशन्तमया गिरिशन्ताभिचाकशीः रामिषुं गिरिशन्तहस्ते मिवर्षस्तवे शिवान् गिरिततान् कुरुमाहि गुंसे पुरुषं जगत् शिवेन वचसा त्वा गिरिशाक्षा वदामसि यथा न सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मकं सुमना असत् अद्य वोषधि वक्तावतमो दैव्योऽभिषक् अहीकस्य सर्वान् जम्बयन् सर्वाश्च यातु धान्यः असो यस्ताम्भ्रो अरुणवत बभ्रुस्तु मङ्गलः ये चेमागं रुद्रा अभितो दिक्षु श्रिता सहस्रशो वैशाखिमहे असौ यो वसत्पति नीलग्रीवो विरोहितः उतैनं गोपादृशं दृशं दहार्यः उतैनं विश्वाभूतानि सदृष्टो मृडयातिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय नीलिषे अतो ये अस्य सत्त्वानोऽहं तेभ्यो करं नमः लमं च दन्वनस्मुपयोरात्मयोज्यां याशते हस्त इषवा पराता भगवो वप अमृतद्विमुस्तुं सहस्राक्षाशतेषु दे निशीलहल्यानामुका शिवो न सुमना भुव विज्ञं दरुत्तपन्दिनो विशल्यो बाणवागुम्भूत अनेशन्ना शेषव आभृश निशङ्गतिः याते तिर्मीदुष्टमहस्ते भूते धनुः तयास्मान् विशतस्तम एक्ष्मयामरिभुजा नमस्ते अस्वायुधायाना तथा विष्णवे उभाभ्यां ते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान्नक्तु विश्वतः अतो युधिस्तवारे अस्मन्निदेहितम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ तत्सत् हरि ओम गुरुजी ಗುರುಜಿ ಮೀಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ನಿಮ್ದು ಮೀಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ
See, now Anish Kalyam will recite the first two slokas of the Shivananda Lahari.
Kalabhyam Jundarankruta Shashikalabyam Nijatapaha Palabhyam Bhakteshu Plakatita Palabhyam Bhavatu Me Shivabhyam Mastoka Tribhuvana Shivabhyam Pradipuna Bhavabhyam Ananda Spradhan Bhavabhyam Nitiryam Galanti Shambho Tacharitaha Saritaha Jalbisha Dalanti Dikulya Saranishu Vatanti Vijayatam Disanti Samsara Brahmana Pritapo Pasamanam Vasanti Machetu Buddha Bhuma Shivananda Hari.
Now Mahesh Karthik Sangeeta the slokas.
Sandhyarambha vijrambitum Shrutishirastanantaraadishpitam Saprema Brahmarabhirama Masakrityutvasana Bhogendra Varanam Samasta Sumanam Ujam Gunavishkritam Seveshri Mallikarjuna Mahalingam Shivalingitam Brangita Natanotkartaha Madigrahi Spuranmadava Ahlado Nadayuto Mahasitavapuhu Pancheshu Nachadrataha Satpakshaha Sumano Vaneshu Sapunaha Sakshanmadiye Mano Rajive Brahmaradipo Viharatam Shri Shailavati Vipuhu Rotrena Lamaham Pravachmina Mrashadeva Virinchadayaha Stutyanam Ganana Prasanga Samage Twamagraganyam Viduhu Mahatnya Gravicharana Prakarane Danatu Shastomava Dutasvam Viduruttamottama Halam Shambho Bhavat Sevakaha.
Thank you. Sangeetam. Padutunnava? Are you singing?
లేదు తాత పాడట్లేదు ఇప్పుడు.
Okay. Babu, are you putting any recorded music?
శివుడు పాట. But I can just sing. పాడనా? సదా మదింతలతు కదరా సదా మదింతలతు కదరా ముదాస్పద నగజాధిపతే సదా మదింతలతు కదరా సదాశివానంద स्वरूप सदा शिव नंद स्वरूप सदा शिव नंद स्वरूप सदा शिव नंद स्वरूप सदय मोद हृदय पद सरोज मुदने सदा मदिन तलतु कदरा मुदास्पत नगजाधिपते सदा मदिन तलतु कदरा दिगंबरान्तकदैत्यहर चिकीश सन्नुत गंगाधर दिगंबरान्तकदैत्यहर चिकीश सन्नुत गंगाधर मृगांगशेखर नटन चतुरा मृगांगशेखर नटन चतुर मृगांगशेखर नटन चतुर मनुव समय मिदिर त्यागराजनूत सदा मदिन तलतु कदरा मुदास्पत नगजाधिपते सदा मदिन सदा मदिन सदा मदिन
ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಂತು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಂತು.
Prasad, are you talking?
I'm done. So you can start the talks. You can introduce the speaker and you can start the program.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namah Shivabhyam Namayuvanabhyam Paraspara Srishtadapo Viradhyam Nagendra Kanyam Rishaketunabhyam Namo Namah Shankara Parvatibhyam Om Agne Naya Supatharaye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Yuyodhyasmat Juhuranameno Bhuishtham Te Nama Uktim Vidhema Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to all of you. This is the first program we are all meeting to start with the Shiva and Parvati glory, and it's a good inauguration for this Plavanama Samvatsaram. Greetings to all of you, and we pray that this Plavanama Samvatsaram must be more prosperous, healthier, and happier, and bring us all kinds of elevation, spirituality, and of our personal enterprises. With this wish, I want to introduce this Bharatiya Stotra Bodha Series number 2. It has come out like that because not only from Vedas we are able to get knowledge, guidance, inspiration, etc. But whatever has been said in Vedas, all that has been retold or represented in a very easy form, in the form of stotras, by various thinkers, various ascetics, various people. And we have a lot of stotra parampara in that. So Shankaracharya happens to be one of the most important, luxurious stotra maker. And we started with his stotras in the first inaugural series by Dr. C.M. Neelakanthan, a Kerala University, Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit professor. And we had we have had 2 new stotras which are edited by him. That is Seva Hrudayam and Matru Panchakam. And after that, we have a great another opportunity to listen to another professor of the Shankaracharya University of Kerala, Kaladi. Again, Shankara is Ravindran. And he chose to speak on Sivananda Lahari, which is almost in the syllabus of our learning every Sunday. And there are many people who are learning Sivananda Lahari. And this particular stotra of 100 slokas by Acharya Shankara, very much important and inspiring and talking about the bhakti. So Shankaracharya has tried to give us the bhakti as the means, because Kalidasa said, Sthira bhakti yoga sulabhaha nisreyasayaha avatunaha. So this Shiva, Lord Shiva is a sulabhaha, but when sthira bhakti yoga, when there is sthira bhakti yoga, he will be accessible to us, he will bless us, and what he will give is nisreyasayaha. Kalidasa says, almost prapti. But when we become eligible for that nisreyas, when we have traveled in the Sanmarga, then what would happen is the Ashtamurti Sakshatkara, and that which will make us to have no birth again. So we'll be freed from that kind of cycle. And that's exactly what Kalidasa said in the Abhignana Sakuntalam, Punarbhavam Chapayatu Nila Lohitaha. So this Nila Lohita, Lord Shiva, who is a great god of achievements, and he has to only remove us from that Punarbhavam. So same would be our desires also when we are just trying to spend time and dedicate ourselves to this kind of stotra parampara. And not much talking on this stotra. Actually, it is said the Sivananda Lahari has been composed by Acharya Shankara when he is in Sri Sailam. That's why we have got the 50th stanza, which was recited by our Mahesh Karthik Dvuri, and there says Shivalingitam. And Shivalingitam, Shiva, we are just thinking that is Ardhanarishwara Swarupa, otherwise everything is well represented. So we try to know more and more about Sivananda Lahari, as our speaker Ravindran introduced, as a ocean of divine bliss. Before that, I should tell some words about Ravindran. His biodata runs to a number of pages, but he has taken his PhD from the Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, and he is in charge of the Vedic studies also Sahitya department there. And he has been doing a lot of editorial work and writing and all that. He is not new to our Kendra. He has already visited some time back, presented a paper he was telling on Katyayana Srauta Sutra, and his articles are published in our journal. So he's a wonderful, enterprising and promising academic scholar and a traditional scholar. So we are having such eminent scholar now to speak to us on this important Sivananda Lahari, talking about the Ananda of Lord Shiva. Because when Ananda, when Shiva enjoys, he dances. When he dances, the bliss, the happiness of Ananda, of Lord Shiva spread all over the cosmos, because he does a cosmic dance, and that Ananda has got to be enjoyed by all people. And so Shankaracharya has given us that wonderful text of 100 slokas. And now I request Dr. Ravindran Garu to give us a talk on the Sivananda Lahari. Thank you very much. Welcome to all of you who have joined, who are going to join and be benefited with his speech. Sri Ram. Now Dr. Ravindran.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhakar. Is it audible, sir?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankara Acharya Madhyamam, Asmada Acharya Paryandam, Vande Guru Paramparam. respected Dr. C.L. Prabhakar, Director, Nadaveda Dhyana Kendra, Bangalore, President, World Association of Vedic Studies, Waves, USA, Indian branch, Bangalore chapter, Professor of Vedas, Hindu University of America, Orlando, other distinguished members who are witnessing this program, dear friends, my pranams to all. At the outset, I express my sincere thanks to the authorities, especially to Dr. Prabhakar and my teacher, Dr. C.M. Neelakanthan, who gave me an opportunity to address all of you through this Bharatiya Stotra Bodha series talk. Years back, I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Prabhakar at Bangalore in one of the conferences organized by the Bangalore chapter of Waves. Today, we are going to discuss about the poetic as well as philosophical beauty of the great work, the Shivananda Lahari, the ocean of divine bliss of Advaita Acharya Sri Shankara. Being a Stotra literature or Bhakti Kavya, I think that a brief discussion on Stotra literature has much relevance before entering into the main topic. Can you see, sir? Can you see the screen? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now let us discuss about the Stotra literature first. The number of stotras in Sanskrit is uncountable. Stotra aims at the glorification, commendation, laudation, and invocation of a deity. The origin of Stotra literature has a great antiquity at the very Vedic hymns, as the very Vedic hymns. In the later ages, they developed a high degree of skill and poetic merit and began to flourish in two channels, namely emotional and devotional. The poet wants to obtain the grace of his Ishtadevata through a Stotra Kavya. The worship can be external, Saguna, or internal, Nirguna. Both aim at making some kind of effect upon the deity and to have communication with the deity. The general nature of stotras is given in the following verse. Namaskaras tathashishcha siddhandokti parakrama vibhudi prarthana chedi shadvitham stotra lakshanam. The hymns like Namaste Rudramanyava in Yajurveda is an example for the Namaskara. Duri karotu duridam gauri charanavangajam is a benediction. Iha gurudam ayurarogya saukhyam is a prarthana. Whatever may be the method adopted, what oozes out from the devotee is bhakti. The concept of bhakti, concept of loving devotion to the Supreme Being, bhakti, is as old as Vedic scriptures in Indian tradition. The Vedic treatises, especially Rigveda, are full of it. Although it is true that at a later time, even the purely devotional hymns were adapted for ritualistic and propitiatory rites. Vedic people tried to please various gods by sacrifices, but those religious observances were basically different from the later developed religion characterized by bhakti cult. Expansion of this cult can be traced to the concept of upasana found in Aranyakas and Upanishads. It blossoms forth in the epics, Puranas, and later devotional literature. The Puranas in general supplement the Vedic development of bhakti cult with highly personalistic conception of the deity suited for purely devotional purpose. They also elaborate the devotional sadhanas into a highly specialized system. The word bhakti is derived from the root bhaj, meaning to serve, to honor, to love. Devotion to God is the meaning of the word. By the long usage in the traditional literature, it is now commonly understood as love of God and the way of life conducive to it. It is a spontaneous attachment to God for the desired object, being entirely possessed by and absorbed in Him. It is the perfection of devotion and freedom from desire. One should dedicate all his physical and mental actions to the God to attain that stage. Narada and Shandilya, the most authoritative theoreticians on bhakti, have described it as the wholehearted and supreme love of God and the highest form of succeeding the ever-continuing attachment to God. Bhagavata, one among the 18 Puranas, define it as follows. When all the energies of the mind, including those of the organs of knowledge and of action, become concentrated as a unified mental mode directed to the Supreme Being, the resulting state of mind is called bhakti. It is superior even to mukti. Like fire, it burns up the soul's sheath of ignorance. Devanam gunalinganam anushravika karmanam sattva eva ekamanaso vritti swabhaviki tuya animitta bhagavati bhakti siddher gariyasi jarayatyasuya kosham nigirna manalo yatha. Sole purpose of human life, according to Bhakti cult, is the practice of devotion, attainment of knowledge, and love of God. The extreme love towards God is the first and foremost aim of bhakti. That state of mind in which everything in this world is neglected for the sake of God, fully immersed in contemplation and being indifferent from the worshipping deity, is praised by the bhakti cult. As in human love, both God and devotee are eager to rush into each other's arms. God's love for man is divine grace and the other is bhakti. Love develops only when obstacles to its manifestations are removed. Spiritual practices also constitute one of the paths towards bhakti, but normally this type will be afflicted with the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. When the mind becomes perfectly pure and free from all the gunas, it is called nirguna bhakti. In this stage, love flows towards God spontaneously and uninterruptedly, like the flow of a river into the ocean or the movement of a piece of iron to a magnet. It is also called kevala bhakti. When the lover enjoys the natural bliss of the realization of his identity with the absolute, his bliss expresses itself in the form of love and service to the whole creation. One who has attained this final stage of bhakti is said to have reached the status of God. This highest love itself is called para bhakti. Thus, after discussing the nature of bhakti, let us move to the main topic. Shivananda Lahiri starts with the prayer for the grace of the parents of this world, Shiva and Parvati. The first verse is like this. Kalabhyam chudalankrita shashikalabhyam nijata bhakphalabhyam bhakteshu prakatita phalabhyam bhavatu me Shivabhyam astogat tribhuvana Shivabhyam hridi punarbhavabhyam anandaspuradhanubhavabhyam nadiriyam. This is my salutation to the divine parents who are the embodiment of all forms of knowledge and art, whom adorn their head with the crescent moon, who are to each other the mutual rewards obtained by their respective austerities, who bestow on aspirants liberation and other fruits of devotional life, who are the bestowers of abounding auspiciousness to the three worlds, who reveal themselves in the form of ever-renewing novelty with the progress of meditation, and whose experience generates supreme bliss in a mind contemplating on them. Here the poet praises for the grace of Lord Shiva and Parvati, the divine parents, who are inseparable. Without their grace, one will not be able even to have any conception about them, nor can one understand their glory even in small amounts. Both are praised as masters of all forms of art. Kala also means a small portion. It can also be assumed that the poet here expresses the need of constant meditation for knowing the immeasurable glory of the pair. A true devotee only can have the bliss of Maheshwara and his consort, which leads him to a happy life in the midst of sorrows. Knowledge of the power of the pair takes the devotee to extreme happiness. One can also notice the beauty of poetic work in this verse. The usages kalabhyam, bhavabhyam, shivabhyam, bhavabhyam are etc. indicate the beauty of the composition. There is a great amount of similarity between this sloka and the first sloka of Saundarya Lahari. There also the poet says that Shiva is capable of doing anything when he is joined with the Shakti, which means that both are together always. Acharya uses the very term Shivananda Lahari, the very title of this work, in the second verse, and prays for the victory of his effort, for which he assumes bliss of Shiva is essential. Galandi Shambho Twacharida Sarida Kilbisharajo Dalandi Kulya Saranishu Patandi Vijayatam Visandi Samsara Brahmana Paditapo Pasamanam Vasandi Machedo Hradabhuvi Shivananda Lahari. May the waves of the stream of supreme bliss of Shiva be victorious. From where they originated? They were originated from the sacred flood of waters of the river of his great story. What the waters do? They, passing through the canals and subways of the various corners of the intellect, wash away the dust of sins and bring relief to the devotee, stricken and afraid of by the miseries of samsara, the cycle of births and deaths. Lahari here means the great wave, the wave of bliss of Lord Shiva. It represents the heartfelt wave of devotion. The devotee knows from experience that the sorrows have no end in this world. He is anxious about the crossing of this miserable ocean of samsara. A complete relief of the devotee from the samsara is what expected by the composer in this verse. He realizes that the healing waters of the river of the story and glory of the Lord, the supreme bliss of Shiva, will bring relief and solace. Shambhu here means the repository of all happiness. In the next verse, the poet establishes the limitless greatness of the Lord. Traivedyam hridyam tripuraharamadhyam trinayanam jadabharodaram chaladuragaharam mrigadharam mahadevam devam mai sadaya bhavam pashupadim chidalambam sambam shivamadhividambam hridi bhaje. I worship the three-eyed luminous Lord of auspiciousness in my heart, who is to be known through the three Vedas, shining in the heart of devotees, the destroyer of the three worlds, of the three bodies, or the three bodies, grows subtle and fossil of his worshippers. The first of all beings, majestic with pile of matted locks, wearing the garland of moving serpents, holding the symbol of deer in hand, the great God of all creatures, distressed by himself, compassionate and merciful source, and support of all true knowledge, inseparable from the Divine Mother and proficient in theatrical arts. The poet here states that greatness of Shiva can be appreciated only through the knowledge of three Vedas. He indirectly instructs to study the Vedas, the repository of knowledge of various subjects. for the deeper understanding of this universe, samsara. The author prays for the grace of the Lord Shiva, which will help to acquire the real knowledge and ultimate mukti. In the fourth stanza, the poet assures why he worships Mahadeva instead of other gods. Sahasram vartande jagadi vibudha kshudra phalada namanye swapneva tadanusaranam talkrida phalam hari brahmadinamabi nigadabhaja masulabham chiram yaje shambho shiva tava padam bhoja bhajanam. Many are the minor deities in this world who confer lesser rewards to their devotees. I never attach any importance to them or pray for any reward out of their worship. Even in dream, I pray for the proximity of your lotus feet forever, which are difficult to attain even for Vishnu and Brahma, the divinities who are in close contact with you. Here Acharya neglects the worship of other deities who can confer only temporary happiness or material benefits. He instead wants to worship the Supreme Lord Mahadeva, who is the sign of auspiciousness and who is the very repository of peace and happiness. What Acharya says here is that worship of smaller deities and giving offering to them for minor benefits leads one to get degraded to a lower level, which is not devotion in its true sense. Further, if one prays for such momentary benefits and favors by performing rituals with such a motive, he cannot escape from the cycle of birth, rebirth, because he has to enjoy the fruits of the karma he performed, howsoever noble it might be. Hence, selfless service at the feet of Lord Shambhu, who is the god of gods alone, can bring lasting happiness and peace. The very worship of Lord Shiva, without the thought of any reward from it, brings everlasting happiness. He may be worshipped not for petty things and small favors, but only for unlimited release. In the next verse, the poet submits himself totally to the Lord Shiva for his protection. Smridau shastre vaidye sakuna kavita gana phanidau Purane mandreva studinadana hasyeshva chatura katham rajnyam predyarbhavadi mai koham pasupade pasumam sarvajna prathita kripaya palaya vibho. O Lord of all beings, please have pity on me and protect me, for I am an ignorant being and do not know who I am. Being not well versed in Smritis, Shastras, medical science, musicology, poetry, science of women, Puranas, Mantra Shastra, dancing and witty remarks, I am unable to attract others. I am not an expert of praising or flattery. How can then I please kings and others? You, the all-knowing and all-pervading, only are for my help and protection. Your greatness is known far and wide. Acharya describes the ways with which one can attain heights in worldly life through this poem. For acquiring respect in this world and to win praise, recognition and rewards from noble people, one should have to his credits some qualities and qualifications. Knowledge in Smritis, Puranas, Mantra Shastra, mastery in various branches of knowledge like medicine, singing, dancing, joking, interpreting science and omens will get liked by others. People with such qualities are respected in this world. One must know how to praise and serve those persons with high position in beautiful words to obtain their favor in this material world. Acharya says that his capacity in all these matters is very less. Hence, he cannot hope to be successful in life. In fact, he does not know who is he. Hence, he asks the service at the feet of God Almighty. In this verse, Acharya asks himself the real question, who am I? He intends each one of us to ask the same question, which is the starting point of all spiritual quest. According to him, for a convincing answer to this question, God's grace is necessary. proficiency in Shastras, and allied subjects are not necessary. They are of secondary importance. The ultimate answer to the above question gets from constant service and meditation at the feet of Lord Shambhu. The poet here exclusively says that instead of praising some people in high position to gain their favor, it would be far better to praise the Lord and get service at his divine feet. He is Pashupati, the protector of all living creatures. His compassion to his devotees is famous. This quality of the God attracts everybody, and everyone approaches him as no learning or other worldly qualifications of success are necessary to approach him. What is needed is a desire to know him and steadfast devotion towards him. In the 7th verse, the devotee wants all his organs to be in close contact with the Lord. Manaste padamje nivasadu vajastotrapanidau karau chabhyarchayam srudirabi kathakarnana vidhau tavadhyane buddhirnayanayugalam murti vibhave paragranthan kaiva paramashiva jane paramada. May my mind be occupied with your lotus feet, my speech with your praise, my hand with your worship, my ears with sacred accounts about you, my intellect with your meditation, and my eyes with the glory of your form. Then, by which organ would I study books unconnected with you? Here Acharya says that all the senses should engage themselves in the contemplation and worship of Lord Shiva. That is the true way of attaining ultimate knowledge. The study of texts and scriptures makes one to think about God, to praise him, to hear his attributes, and offer worship to him in ritual form. Through the scriptures, one can know the path of ultimate devotion, which in practice can be attained only by the close contact with the Supreme Deity. Acharya refers to the duties of the different people in the 11th verse. Paturva gehiva yatirabi jadiva taditaro narova yakkaschid bhavadu bhavakim tena bhavati yadiyam hritpatmam yadi bhavadadhinam pasupate tadiyastvam shambho bhavasi bhavabharam chavahasi. Whatever may be a person's station and status in life, be he a student of Vedas, a householder, an ascetic, a mendicant, or an outsider of these, if the heart of that person is under the control of you, you become his own, and yourself takes the responsibility of the worldly burdens of that person. A person may belong to any of the 4 varnas, but his status in life, ashramas, may differ according to the duties to be performed by him. Accordingly, there are 4 stations in life: Brahmacharya, Garhasthya, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. There are separate duties to be performed by the people coming under these 4 ashramas. In this regard, Acharya says that whatever may be the stage in life one occupies, the total submission to the God Shambhu, who is the Pashupati, brings him liberation from worldly life. Karma actually is a burden which may cause rebirths, but the Lord relieves one from repeated births if the devotee totally surrenders to him. That is the mighty of Lord Shiva. It's a common saying that nobody is able to remove the writings by Brahma, the creator, on the forehead of the creator. But Lord Shiva can erase even that. This point is described in the 15th sloka. Ubekshano chel kim naharasi bhavadhyana vimukham durasha bhuyishtham vidhilabi masakro yadi bhavan sirastadvaidhatram nanakhalu suvrittam pasupate katham va niryattam karanakhamukhe naivalulidam. O Lord, if you are not indifferent to a devotee like me, then you should erase the writing of Brahma, the creator, concerning my faith, which will give only a life full of desires, which again would make me turn away from thinking of you and meditating on you. If you think yourself powerless to do this, then, O Lord, please explain how it was possible for you to remove an entire head of Brahma without any effort with the tips of your fingernails. Vidhilivi here refers to the fate of an individual. A person is born in accordance with the action done by him in his previous births. The Creator grants the life deserved to every individual, which is unable to obstruct by anybody. The devotee here prays the Lord to rescue from the fate fixed by the Creator. The Lord only is capable of doing that, as he had plucked one head of Brahma without any difficulty. In verse 22, the author prays that his mind always be with Lord Pashupati. Pralobhadyai arthaharanavaratantrodhanigrihe praveshodyuktasan brahmadi bahudha taskarapade imam chedaschoram kathamiha sahe shankara vibho tavadhinam krutva mayi niraparadhe kuru pravam. O auspicious and all-pervading God, driven by undesirable greed and other evil qualities, and being enslaved by the tendency to misappropriate wealth, my mind intent like a thief and is helplessly wandering about without steadiness. O Lord of thieves, design to bring my mind under your control and bestow your grace on me so that I may be guiltless. Shiva is described here as a lord of all thieves, as he steals the hearts of his devotees. The poet states here that most difficult thing is to control one's mind. Thoughts have to be controlled for better result of actions. When both thought and action are under control, then only spiritual progress is possible. For controlling thought, God's grace is necessary. Hence, Acharya repeatedly says that for the grace of Lord. The 4 levels in the attainment of the Lord, Mukti, and the paths of devotion are described in the 28th verse. Sarupyam tava pujane Shiva Mahadevedi Sankirtane Samipyam Shiva Bhakti Dhurya Janada Sangatya Sambhashane Salokyam cha Characharatmaga Tanudhyane Havani Pade Sayujyam Mama Siddhamatra Avadi Swamin Pradarthosmyaham. O the Lord of Bhavani, by performing your worship, I attain the similarity or identity of Om with you. With the recitation of your names, Shiva, Mahadeva, etc., I attain your proximity. By associating and engaging in meaningful dialogues with your noble devotees, I attain the residence in your heavenly abode, and also oneness with you by contemplating on your form, constituted of the whole of these living and non-living worlds. Oh Lord, I am satisfied. What mukti means is freedom, freedom from worldly attachments. It has 4 states. Sarupya, the state of identification of oneself with the form of God in worship. Samipya, mentally identifying oneself with the form of God chosen for worship. Salokya, residing in the same place where God has his abode. And Sayujya, attaining oneself, oneness and merging with God. Here, the individual soul, freed from its desires and bondages, enjoys supreme bliss by union with the Absolute. Among these, the last one, union with God, which is more difficult to attain, is rightly called the final stage of Mukti. It is the absolute merging of one with the Lord. At that stage, one sees God in everything, and the greatness of God is revealed in all creatures. In the 43rd verse, Acharya requests the Lord not to leave his mind, stay there forever, so that he may not be afflicted by evil thoughts and can reach the Lord easily. Magacha Tvamidastado Girisha Ho Mayeva Vasam Kuru Swamin Adigirada Mamagamana Kandara Simandare Vartande Bahusho Mraga Madajusho Malsarya Mohadayastan Hatwa Pradaya Vinodarujiralabham cha Samprapsyasi. O Lord Girisha, first among the hundreds of the world, reside within me alone. Don't go here and there in search of animals, because in the thick forest of my mind, there are several wild beasts like jealousy, covetousness, and attachments. By killing these animals, you can satisfy yourself by indulging in the sport of hunting. Here, the mind of the devotee is taken as a forest with wild animals. Desire, jealousy, greed, and anger are the animals residing in that forest. These overpower the man and make him commit sins. The Lord here is described as the Adikirada, the aboriginal hunter who lives in the forest by hunting the wild animals. The poet prays to the Lord to kill these animals forever, living in his heart, so that nothing would prevent him towards the progress of reaching the God. The story of Kirata is referred to here. Verse 55 is a beautiful glorification of Lord Shiva. Adhyaya amida tejase srutipadeir vedyaya sadhyayate vidyanadamayatmane vegadar samrakshanodhyogine keyaya akhila yogibhis suraganeirgeyaya mayavine samyak tandava sambramaya jadine seyam nadi shambhave. My salutations are to Lord Shambhu, who is the source of all auspiciousness, the first and foremost among all, light, limitless, known in the praisable form through the mantras contained in the Vedas, the very personification of knowledge, bliss, keenly engaged in the protection of three worlds, eminently qualified to the object of meditation of all yogis, praised with the hymns by the celestials, the creator and controller of Maya, performer of Tandava dance, and having matted locks of hair on the head. Here the poet tries to establish that even the entire universe merged in deluge, the Lord still exists as the only is, and he only is eternal. He is the first ever to exist and always being existed. He is beyond the consideration of time and is without beginning and end. According to thus, there are several verses in this beautiful work which teach the way to know and attain the ultimate reality through the path of devotion. God's grace is the sole need for the devotee, as it only is the way to attain the Paramapurushartha, the moksha. According to Acharya Shankara, that state of mind is called bhakti, wherein all movements of thought go automatically to the lotus feet of the Lord and stick to them on forever. Just as the seed of Angola tree moved to the parent tree, seed of Angola tree moved to the parent tree, the iron needle to the magnetic stone, the devoted wife to her husband, the creeper to the tree, and the river to the ocean. Ankolam nijabija santadirayaskandopalam suchika sadhvinaija vibhum yatakshitiruham sindhus saridvallabham prapnodiha yatha tatha pasupate padaravindadvayam chedo vrittiruvetyatishtati sada sa bhaktirityuchyate. Here the real state of bhakti is expressed with 5 examples. First one is the action of Ankola tree. It is said that the Ankola tree has the tendency to attract the dispersed seeds towards it. Here tree is considered as the god and the seed as the devotee. What is referred to here is that during this stage, which is the first one, the devotee gets attached to the god as he is the child of God. It is a stage of sprouting of bhakti. The proximity of the devotee with the protector is very essential during this stage. The god attracts the devotee with an intention that the devotee should not be away from him. as a householder keeps his progenies in close proximity during the early ages as part of protection, so is the action of the god. Second example is the attraction of a magnet towards a needle. Here in the second stage, the needle becomes attracted towards magnet because of the power of magnet. The devotee gets attracted towards the god with more power as the god draws the devotee towards him during this stage. The devotion moves one step further here. The third example is the approach of a chaste wife towards her husband. Here the wife is united with her husband mentally and emotionally. The difference is only in the physical union from him. The union of the bodies is occasional, whereas the mental and emotional attachments are more lasting. Likewise, though the devotee is physically separated from the god, he or she remain close with God mentally. The devotee at this stage gets totally surrendered to the god. Next is the example of the attraction of a creeper plant towards a tree. The creeper is in need of the tree for its existence. As the creeper encompasses the tree totally, they may not be able to identify separately to the close proximity. The creeper becomes one with the tree, and the difference can be known only with the help of a close investigation. Finally, Acharya gives the example of the merging of a river to a sea. The sea receives the water of several rivers. Once the water from the river joins the sea, the river loses its identity. Likewise, in the last stage of bhakti, the devotee, like several other devotees, becomes one with God. This stage is what is called Sayujya. Thus, Acharya explains the different stages of devotion. Let me conclude this talk with the following remarks. Some are of different opinion regarding the authorship of this text to Adi Shankara, but it can be understood that there is no space for such a discussion. Bhakti and Jnana are the two sides of the same action. A philosopher can be a devotee, and a devotee a philosopher. The essence of devotion is the longing for God. God, the extreme power, can be perceived internally and externally. The method of internal realization is what is taught by the Vedanta philosophy. In Bhakti cult, the devotee gets in contact with his deity through external methods. So, to say, though through ardent love. In both cases, the mental state of the devotee is most important. Hence, Bhakti is the ultimate love and Jnana is the ultimate knowledge. Hence, there is no contradiction to think that a kavya like this can take birth from a philosopher like Shankara. What Acharya proclaims through these poems is that the intensity and depth of one's devotion is most important. The birth, the occupation, and learning are only secondary. All the outer adornments should add to the inner bhakti, which only will give splendor and effulgence to the devotee. Shiva means the auspiciousness, Ananda the bliss, and Lahari the waves. The infinite bliss is experienced as waves by the devotee who contemplates on Lord Shiva, the pure consciousness. One gets the experience of flood of Ananda and also the taste of auspiciousness by knowing the qualities of Shiva. It is not the worldly experience, but the experience of divine bliss. The bhakta experiences the bliss arising out of the total auspiciousness. This is the state of bhakti, enjoying the Shivananda Lahari, the wave of the bliss of Shiva. Bahuvidha paritosha bashpapura sphudha pulagangita charu bhoga bhumim chirapada phalakankshi sevyamanam parama sada shiva bhavanam prapadye amidamudamradam muhurduhandim vimala bhaval padagoshthamaavasandim sadaya pashupate supunyapagam mama paripalaya bhakti dhenu megam. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravindran. You have given a wonderful insights into the great Kavya, Sotra Kavya,
Thank you, sir.
Sivananda Lahari.
Yes.
And I now request Rajalakshmi Garu to give her comments and
Thank you very much. Sadasiva Arambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. My humble pranams to Guruji, Dr. Prabhakar Garu. My humble namaskars to Dr. K. Ravindran and other participants. Thank you, Ravindraji, for a wonderful discourse given by Adi Shankaraj, Shivananda Lahari, the inundation of the divine bliss, and for its devotional fervor and its very inspiring speech. The first sloka, the Shivananda Lahari, the opening sloka reveals Ardhanari Tattvam, mentioned very nicely, and Rupa Samyam, Rama Samyam, and Panchakut Parayanam of one, Karma Phala Pradata of Shiva. And I'm going to talk about the last sloka of Ankoram Nijamandati. And the Vedanta held Jnana and Bhakti, the two sides of coin, as you mentioned. True Bhakti and devotion were the devotee's mind unable to bear even a moment of separation from the shelter of God, even if you remove forcibly, and it's graphically described in verse 61. Like Ankolam Nija Bidi Santati Raskantam Palam Suchika Swadi Naiji Vibum Latakshitiruham Sindhu Sadvirati Vallabam Prapnothem Yada Tade Pashupatehi Padara Vindadvayam Cheto Kirpeta Tishtata Sada Sabhakti Iti Uchate. The nature of the divine longing, how it absorbs the whole man, is graphically described by the verse 61 of the text, mentioned very nicely. The state of the mind is called bhakti or divine love, where all the movements of thought goes automatically to the lotus feet of Shiva, the Lord, and strict him forever. Just like seeds, as you mentioned, Ankola tree, the seeds falling and gravitate to the parent tree, the iron needle to the magnetic bar, and devoted wife to her beloved husband, the creeper to the tree, and the river to the ocean. So, in this point, I conclude. I'm only a learning student. I'm not able to explain properly. Thank you very much.
Rajalakshmi Garu, she is in Atlanta, regular student, trying to know more and more about spiritual literature and knowledge and all that. So I just wanted or requested her to participate and include herself in making some kind of observation, and she has done a wonderful job.
Yes, yes.
And Ravindran has covered the entire almost these Sivananda Lahari important slokas. All slokas are important.
Yeah. All important.
But
All
it is hard to choose what we can include
yes,
in a stipulated time, because we are all bound by time. And even Acharya Shankara was also bound by time. So he had to do a lot of work. Therefore, quickly he has done around 121 stotras and works and made himself immortal, at the same time benefit to all people. Although he has not made any commentary of the Vedas directly, but he has given the entire essence of the Vedas in his stotras, and they are highly popular, instructive, and they are all awakening senses and all that. So in this particular Sivananda Lahari, he has not done good justice for the Shiva, who is known for Ananda. And as a contrast, we have got Saundarya Lahari of Devi Parvati. So Saundarya forms one side of the coin, and Ananda forms the other side of the coin. So put together it will be Saundaryananda or Ananda Saundarya. When it is both are there, then life is really a great fulfillment. And moreover, it is said that Shiva is the encourager or originator for the most important Vidya called Sri Vidya. So Sri Vidya comes from because of Lord Shiva, and we have got a number of literature, great literature on Sri Vidya, one of the Dashamahavidyas, but it's a Brahma Vidya also. And in that context, Sivananda Lahari, Saundara Lahari, and Durga Saptami form important Prasthana Trayam or Prasthanam.
Yeah.
And so that we'll be catching the entire Upasana Paddhati and all that. So for everything, Bhakti is important.
Yeah.
And for the Bhakti, mind is this base,
Yeah.
Buddhi is the controller, and Indriyas are the truants.
Yeah.
Therefore, all these things have got to be kept online. So Shankaracharya has done a wonderful job as trying to put that Sthira Bhakti and made it as a yoga, and trying to define what that Sthira Bhakti is. And in Sivananda Lahari, as we have all seen, that the mind is the target.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a Chataka Pashi, sometimes it's a flow, sometimes it's a Valli. So whatever number of, and moreover, and mind is also basically a monkey. So in Sivananda Lahari, Acharya says that my mind is a monkey. So when you go for Bhikshadanam, if you go alone, you don't get sufficient Bhiksha, that you will be able to quench your hunger. So monkey along with your begging the arms, then you will get more arms and fees. So in that very beautiful way, Shankaracharya is also highly humorous and worldly, although he's a path founder, has made a foundation of the Advaita system and all that heights of philosophy, but he has come down to the level of ordinary people, made them understand who is God, what he can do for the mankind, and what is mankind, and styling himself as a Pashupati. Pasunam Patim, Papanasham. So Pashus are always prone for Papam, the sin, the mistakes, the folly and all that. So unless that kind of contamination is removed by one or the other means, then only they become pure, and purity makes people to be eligible to hope higher planes of happiness. Therefore, in Sivananda Lahari, on the on gradation part, he has tried to establish ultimately what. Then in the last sloka of Sivananda Lahari, even he has to conclude, and he did so when he says that Stotrenalam, because that Stotrenalamaham pravachmi namrusha deva virinchadayaha Stutyanam ganana prasanga samaye tvam agraganyam viduhu Mahatmyagra vicharana prakarane dhana tushastoma vadhutahatvam viduhu uttama phalam shambho bhavat sevakaha. What more can Sankara say ultimately? That we have all to become bhavat sevakaha.
Yes.
We have to be subservient to Lord Shiva, and also have developed the technology of wonderful seva to him, so that he will definitely oblige and give us that. And moreover, the priority has to be given to the God of our choice and election. So in that priority, he says there are gods and gods and gods, but all gods only fulfill our desire, something like Brahmadeva. Brahmadeva is not eligible to give us emancipation. So that was a mistake done by Muchukunda. As we see in Bhagavatam, hey, I did not know that you are not eligible to give me moksha, but I wasted my time. Then Brahmadeva said, no, don't feel regretful about that. I can give you all your whatever wants, but the preparation for to get moksha, I make you that yoga, nidra, and wherein you get have a Narayana Smriti. So that Muchukunda went into the cave and went on remembering Narayana, and thereby the Krishna ran up to Muchukunda, give him moksha, because we don't know where the gods are there. Therefore, even today, when we climb the mountain of Tirumala, to have darshan of Venkateswara, people keep on shouting, Muchukunda Varada Govinda, meaning that all bhaktas may not be able to reach the heights and go up to the feet of that Devi, the God. He must himself come down and help. That is possible in many bhaktas, like Annamacharya and all that. God comes to the bhaktas, gives them enough courage and strength, and makes them all that. So this is all a bhakti two-way flow. It's not only one way. So God wants people to be bhaktas, and people want to be service-minded and devotees. That kind of mutual transaction is being well established by our Acharya Shankara in his stotras. And now we have that Saparya Stotra, where you have got the method of how best one can submit to Acharya or Lord Shiva, who is Shambhu, confirmed happiness he will give us. Then we have also got, this all found in the Purana. Puranas are being represented as our Ravindran gave a small survey of how the Stotra Kavya arises. But everything is, even Rigveda is also a Stotra Kavya.
There
is also Kavi and Kavya. My professor, Dr. Shende, has written Kavi and Kavya in the Rigveda. And again, he did not stop. Kavi and Kavya in the Atharva Veda. That there are two publications. And one was done by H.D. Velankar, also did it, publications from Suna University. But I also try to do Vedas. So to say, Kavim Kavinam Upavasramastamam. See that Kavim Kavinam, Kavi, of course, Paramatma, but everybody is Kavis. So everybody is a poet. Everybody has got that aesthetic outlook and devotional sense, and attempt to become good bhaktas and get the emancipation in this Janma itself, not to wait for another. We have to stop that. So that kind of sense has been introduced by our Acharya, Shankara, Dukuru. When he say when Shankara did as Bhajagovinda Stotram, he said, Nahi nahi ratshadi dukurunkarane. No, all these things will not protect you. Govindam bhaja. So that Govinda is also a Shiva. Shivaya Vishnu Rupaya. Whomever we like, we can do it. And so we have started a journey of trying to know what is bhakti, how we can submit, what are the measures, and even the measures that constitute the bhakti process or bhakti project have been given to us. Of course, Andilya, Narada, and all of them there, but it is hard to get attracted to those books. But when we study stotras like Saundarya Lahari, because in Saundarya Lahari also Shankara tells, Tavahi Charanaveva Nipunau. Amma, all your four hands are busy, only your eyes and feet are left free for bhaktas, that you can take care of them. Tavahi Charanaveva Nipunau. So I think Acharya Shankara is a highly devoted, elevated soul who was able to study and read the mind of gods, more so the Moksha-prada gods, and therefore he has given us a lot of solutions, a lot of ways and means by which we can be more comfortable. So I must be very much thankful that Dr. Ravindran has given us a glimpse. In fact, we are only in 50-51 sloka. Every Saturday, every Sunday, we are meeting a group of people from Atlanta and other places in America and also from India, where we are trying to go sloka by sloka, understanding that Shivananda Lahari. We are also in the same way journeying with Saundarya Lahari. So these two books are going on live in our group of study of these two. And of course, Durga Saptati is awaiting. And next month in the Stotra series, we'll have the Stotras from the Durga Saptasati. Durga Saptasati, Shivananda Lahari, Saundarya Lahari, and Lalita Sahasranamam, etc. These are all also contain Stotras. So next month we'll have on Durga Saptasati. The other month we'll have on Saundarya Lahari. This is what I have planned, so that we'll be able to catch complete systems available in the Bhakti project, so that we will have some kind of awakening and adjustments in our mind, because mind will always go to the mundane things and attractions. Try to have that kind of resignation and also attachment for the resignation for the mundane life, pleasures and pressures, and attachment for the spiritual heights. So this is a journey, and that we are very much thankful to Dr. Neelakantan, who inaugurated, and Ravindran again from Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit. You know, Sankara, all Sankaras are there. So we have that good fortune. And once again, I think we'll have one more Shankaracharya University professor to talk about Saundar Lahari in next series of our Stotra Bodha. So it is a journey that we will become more and more educated. I must be thankful for Ravindran, and again to Rajalakshmi Garu. She is only, but now I could understand she is really following deeply all that has been imparted and her own reflections upon that. She also has not taken much time, and she has made some wonderful, because she is a student of Sivananda Lahari and Saundar Lahari, we have all options. The students have got more freedom to reflect on the teacher and the work that and the syllabus being given, because the greatness of the teacher is depending upon the students' comments. So I'm very thankful to Rajalakshmi Garu also, and that other person who has to give us vote of thanks. She is not able to be present because of her own important commitment in prayer. I am here to give vote of thanks to Dr. Ravindran, who has given wonderful discourse on Sivananda Lahari and introduced it for us, and again to Rajalakshmi Garu. And also I should thank the small boys, that Mr. Anish Kalyam and also Duri, Mahesh Duri, who have tried to represent important 5 slokas. Again, that is being divided. Actually, I wanted one person to do it, but Dr. Sita Ramalakshmi said it may be a load for these 2 kids to get into that, because they are American-born children. So we made small convenient division, 2 slokas for the Anish and 3 slokas for Mahesh, who are learning Sanskrit also here. So there is a Sanskrit classes conducted in America. So they are learning Sanskrit from them. So they are just, it's a kind of opportunity for them to show themselves to you, and they are all just journeying. So, and also Anjaneya Prasad, he is very busy, but he is attending with something like our Dr. Ghare, who is doing double, who has got ideas to do double work. So, so many things are there. I am thankful to that Prasad and all of them, and all of you also spare some time, that Vasan and all other students in India who are holding the torch of Veda, Vedic heritage, and the Hindu literature. To all of them, I thank very much. I bless all of them, whoever are present here, are likely to be present, and who could not. But all this has been recorded. This will be available on the YouTube channel, and therefore those who could not make time for that, they can enjoy this talk, and thankful to you. And Vasan, if you are there and all that, let us recite the Shanti Mantram.
Om Sahana Bhavato
Sahana
Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu.